Welcome to Window to Faith.
Ever feel like you're just going through the motions in your faith? Like you're just sort of waiting for that spark to like ignite real change in your life. I think we've all been there. And that yearning for something more, something deeper. It's what we're diving into today as we explore the incredible power of God's love.
You've hit on something really crucial there. It's not just about knowing about God's love, right? It's about like really experiencing it in a way that truly transforms us from the inside out.
Absolutely. And it reminds me something I read recently about how even Christians who know John 3.16 by heart might not fully grasp what it means to live in the reality of that love daily. It's like we have this incredible gift, but we haven't quite figured out how to unwrap it and experience its full impact, you know?
Yeah, it's like having a high-definition television, you know, capable in displaying the most vibrant, breathtaking images, but instead we've settled for just watching a fuzzy black and white channel.
Wow.
The capacity for a clear picture, it's there, but we haven't quite tuned into the right signal.
That's a really powerful analogy.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder, how do we become more intentional about tuning into God's love? The source material that we're diving into today actually uses this phrase that really struck me, professional receiver. It's like we're being challenged to approach receiving God's love as an active and deliberate pursuit.
I love that. Yeah, it's about shifting from a passive understanding of God's love to an active posture of receiving, positioning ourselves to experience the fullness of His love in tangible, life-changing ways. And one of the most powerful ways to do this is to simply ask.
You mean directly ask God to reveal His love to us?
Exactly. One of the sources shares a story about a person who did just that. They were longing for a tangible sign of God's love, so they asked for something very specific to see a shooting star that night.
And I'm guessing they saw the shooting star?
They did.
Yeah.
It's just one example, right?
Oh.
But it beautifully illustrates how God delights in revealing His love to us in these really personal, often unexpected ways, like it might be a song,
Right.
a verse, a conversation, even just a moment in nature. But the key is being open, expectant, and willing to listen for His voice in the midst of our everyday lives.
It's amazing how when we open ourselves up to that kind of personal revelation of God's love, you know, it starts to touch every aspect of our lives. It's not just this warm, fuzzy feeling inside.
Yeah.
It actually changes how we interact with the world around us.
Absolutely. It impacts everything. How we handle challenges, how we view and treat others.
Yeah.
It really does permeate everything.
You know, something that really struck me in what we've been reading is this idea that understanding God's love changes how we see other people.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever noticed how much easier it is to get annoyed or offended by someone when you're not really thinking about how much God loves them, you know?
Oh, absolutely. It's like when you look at someone through the lens of their flaws and mistakes,
Yeah.
right? It's so easy to get caught up in that judgment.
Yeah.
But when we grasp even a fraction of the depth of love God has for them, for all of us really,
Right.
it shifts our whole perspective.
Yeah.
It allows us to see their worth, their potential, even when they're not at their best.
It's like we're seeing them through God's eyes, and suddenly those imperfections seem so much less significant.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
that's when, forgiveness, patience, grace, those things become so much more accessible.
Yeah.
And it's not that their actions become okay, but it's that, we understand their journey is still unfolding.
This reminds me of the story of Peter and John.
Yeah.
They were both so close to Jesus, yet their relationships with him seem so different, especially in those challenging moments.
It's a fascinating dynamic to observe, isn't it?
Yeah.
You have Peter, so eager, so passionate, yet often operating out of his own understanding and strength.
Yeah.
Now there's John, who seemed to have this deep internal sense of just being loved by Jesus.
Yeah.
That just permeated everything he did.
And you see that reflected in the way he refers to himself as the disciple whom Jesus loved.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And it wasn't about arrogance
Right.
or comparing himself to the other disciples. It was simply a core part of his identity. That deep sense of being loved by Jesus, of being fully known and fully accepted, that gave him a courage and a closeness that even Peter at times seemed to lack. Remember, it was John who stood at the foot of the cross when everyone else, including Peter, was afraid.
It makes you think about that well-known verse, 1 John 4.17. As he is, so are we in this world. We often hear it in the context of authority and power.
Right.
But the source material highlighted how important it is to read that verse in its broader context.
Such a crucial point. The verses surrounding 1 John 4.17, they're all about love being the antidote to fear. In fact, it says, there is no fear in love, but perfect love casts out fear. For fear has to do with punishment, and whoever fears has not been perfected in love. It's not just about faith conquering fear.
Right.
It's about love being the very thing that displaces fear.
That's really making me think.
Yeah.
It's like when we truly grasp that unshakable truth of God's love for us, fear loses its grip. It doesn't mean we'll never face challenges or experience uncertainty, but we can face them from a place of security and confidence, knowing that we are deeply loved and cared for.
Absolutely.
So we're seeing this ripple effect, right? How truly grasping God's love changes not just how we see ourselves, but how we see other people, how we handle challenges. But the source material takes it a step further, suggesting that this love is also like our greatest weapon against the enemy's lies.
That's such a key point. Think about it. What does the enemy do? He whispers doubt, right? Feeds our insecurities, tries to make us question our worth, God's love for us.
Those voices we all know. You're not good enough. You've messed up too much this time. God could never truly forgive that.
Exactly. And those lies, they can be paralyzing, can't they? But here's the incredible thing. When we're rooted and grounded in the truth of God's love, we have the ultimate defense.
Yeah, it's like that image of a fortress on a hill. The enemy might try to attack, but those walls built on God's love.
Right.
Impenetrable.
I love that. And the source uses such a compelling example to illustrate this.
Yes.
The story of Jesus being tempted in the desert.
Right. Even Jesus, the Son of God, was tempted.
Yeah.
It's like the enemy was trying to use doubt to shake even his foundation. Exactly. The enemy came at him with that classic line, if you are the Son of God, trying to plant that seed of uncertainty. You know?
But here's what gets me. Jesus's response wasn't about proving anything, right?
Right.
It wasn't about listing off his accomplishments or anything. It was all about his identity as God's beloved son.
There it is. That knowledge, that deep down certainty of being loved, accepted, cherished by the Father, that's what empowered him to resist.
Yeah.
And it's the same for us. It's not about our performance or our worthiness. It's about resting in the unwavering love that's already ours.
So if we're finding ourselves constantly battling fear, insecurity, those feelings of condemnation, it might be a sign that we've forgotten, even for a moment, how deeply and unconditionally we're loved by God.
Such a powerful insight, yeah. Because when you truly grasp that love, it changes your entire value system. You begin to see yourself the way God sees you. Forgiven, redeemed, worthy. And from that place, you find the strength to say no to anything that contradicts that identity.
Yeah. Whether it's the enemy's lies, unhealthy relationships, choices that lead us away from who we truly are.
Exactly. It's about aligning our lives with the truth of God's love and letting that be our compass.
This deep dive has been incredible. I feel like we've only just scratched the surface, but what a surface to scratch. It makes you wonder, how do we share this kind of love with a world that so desperately needs it?
Such an important question. The source material offers some really practical advice. First and foremost, we can encourage others to just directly ask God to reveal his love to them. Remember, he loves to answer that prayer.
It's like we're giving them permission to ask for that amazing gift, right?
Exactly. And then, sometimes the most powerful thing we can do is simply share our own stories.
Yeah.
Not in a preachy way, right?
Right.
From a place of authenticity.
Just letting our joy, our freedom, the peace we found in God's love, be contagious.
Because people can spot authenticity a mile away.
Yeah.
When they see that genuine, life-changing power of God's love just shining through someone, it sparks a curiosity in their own hearts,
It's like that saying, preach the gospel at all times, use words if necessary. Sometimes just living out the reality of God's love, it just speaks volumes.
Absolutely.
And, this entire conversation, this whole deep dive, it's really got me thinking. It's like, if we build our faith just solely on rules and obligations, what happens when life throws those inevitable curveballs our way?
Right.
Bound, to crumble. But a foundation built on truly experiencing and embracing God's love, that's unshakable.
It really is.
It's the difference between striving for love and resting in the love that's already ours. And I think that's a great note to end on. As you go about your day, why not ask yourself, what would it look like for me to shift from striving to resting, from trying to earn God's love to simply receiving the boundless love that's already mine? Who knows? The answer might just change everything.